So, Derek, how's your weekend?
Pretty good. Pretty good fights. I'm a big fan of UFC. You said you. I totally did not send you a link to the illegal stream that I do not that I do not. I totally pay for the UFCs by going on ESPN Plus, paying $5 a month, and paying $60 to watch the fight. That's totally what I do.
And I totally did not try to click on that link either.
Yeah, that'd be horrible. We'd be terrible
No.
people if we did that.
I wasn't able to watch it, so so tell me about it.
It was pretty good. So, like we were talking right before the podcast. So the co-main event was that fight was, I think, fight of the year last year, and it ended in a draw. So like it was kind of hyped up, but it was at flyweight, which is 125. So like they're pretty small. So those fights usually don't get a lot of action. Well, they get action, but like not a lot of hype built around them. But a lot of people were really excited to see this fight, and it ended with the guy that I thought wasn't going to win, Brandon Moreno. He actually ended up winning by submitting the other guy who would probably be considered better in like jiu-jitsu, and he ended up submitting that guy, so it was pretty crazy.
So, was that a rematch of last year, you said?
Yeah, it was in December. It was a rematch. And then the main event was the current champion, Israel Adesanya. He just put a clinic on, and he just dismantled the other guy. It was pretty cool.
Oh, interesting. I had a lot of weekends of. I actually went swimming this weekend for the first time this summer.
Oh, yeah? Where'd you go?
Yeah. My buddy's on vacation, so we're watching over his pool.
Watching
Watching,
his full-
watching over with my kids, yeah, and they're entertaining them. So no, ours is going in this weekend. We're excited about that, and so this will be a summer of swimming. Hopefully, we have some nice weather.
This right here, this right here is out of necessity, because we're recording this in the morning. We usually record Sunday night, but this is Monday morning, and our AC is broken. And a thing about me that you might not know, I cannot sleep if it's hot, and it's been pretty hot, so I didn't get much sleep last night.
You gotta have a lot of fans on you.
No, we just prayed to God that it got cold overnight and just left the window cracked, which it did.
Funny.
So, and it seems what the thing is, it seems to be working this morning. So I'm kind of mad, but at least we get to use our cool mugs, you know.
Yeah, excellent. Well, let's follow this chain of events here. So, if you break money down, you and I have had this discussion before. To me, the discussion of money and what is money is a fascinating discussion, because if you ask the average person that, what is money, they may scratch their head like, what do you mean by that? Money, in short, whether we're talking about dollars or we're talking about coins or we're talking about crypto, is an exchange of value. And money provides a peaceable exchange of value, which in my opinion is a very noble cause. And it's a very noble pursuit. Otherwise, we have to take things by force. So money provides a peaceable exchange of value. In my opinion, where that value comes from is time. Derek, if you go out and you pay $400 for a pair of Yeezys, what you're saying is that those shoes will bring $400 worth of enjoyment to you. And what you're measuring that on is the time it takes you to earn $400. So through the purchase of those shoes, you are saying that, yes, my time is worth those shoes. And essentially, when we look at the exchange of value, we're looking at an exchange of time.
I would also probably add, sorry, what was that?
So you're going to have to cut that off here, because I just completely lost what I was supposed to say.
Oh, well,
Hold on.
I would also add into that definition the, like delayed gratification. So you're also, and opportunity cost. So you're also, the value of the Yeezys, to go with that example, also is all of the stuff that you could have bought with the $400. So like, let's say like go to the grocery store for 2 weeks. So like that's kind of also built into the cost. And then like delayed gratification, where let's say that $400 you've been saving up, where it's added extra value because you could have spent $50 increments over the past 4 weeks on other stuff, but you chose to save. So those are all kind of baked into the value of the item that you're buying.
Yeah, and it's really diving deep into it, which most people probably don't. I do. When I make large purchases, I'll think about that. Like, is this working better for me in the stock market, or will this bring me better return by purchasing it and spending it. So if time, though, is money is a representation of time, money's value, and that value comes from time, and it comes from our time. If we're looking for ways to increase our value, because we get paid, really, if you look at our paychecks, they reflect on the value that we provide to others. And that is a rare value that we provide to others. So if the value that we provide to others is not rare, meaning that they can go anywhere and find it at equal or better, then they're probably not going to pay us a lot for that. And the example that I'm going to give, and this is not disparaging anybody who has this job, but if I'm working at a fast food restaurant and I'm working behind the counter taking those orders, that is actually providing value to someone else, right? I'm hungry. I'm going to you. I want to give you my order, and I'm hoping that you are able to process that order effectively so I can get the food that I want. So that is a value. But that restaurant, there's lots of people that can work that job. So that is not a rare value. A rare value would be somebody, let's say I'm a chemist or a doctor, and I've come up with a treatment procedure for cancer that is 80% effective. People are willing to pay a lot for that because that provides a tremendous value to the world. A trusted advisor might provide a lot of value. If I'm a contractor and my work is head and shoulders above the rest, people are willing to pay up for that value. So what I want to talk about is how do we increase that value? And one of the ways that we can increase that value is by becoming more efficient with our time. We only have so much time in the day. Most of us work anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day. How do we take those 8 to 12 hours and make the most out of them so that we can provide more value to others and in return receive more income from our work?
It's actually kind of interesting you brought up doctors. This is totally a tangent, but there's actually like with certain professions. So like think about like the American Medical Association. That pretty much only exists to keep doctors' wages high, because if you think about all the hurdles that doctors have to go through, past a certain point, most of that stuff won't determine whether or not you're going to be a good doctor. It's just there to like provide another hurdle, because you have to do like residency and then like pass board. Like think about all the stuff a doctor has to do. So like at a certain point, if you sent the doctor off and just started being a doctor, he would probably be fine. But like some of those hurdles just exist to keep wages artificially high. Not that they're not deserved, because obviously that's a crazy hard profession and their skills are being valued because they're obviously like uber highly intelligent, but it's just kind of interesting. There's other things that exist like that like even financial advisors, like all these licensing exams where if everybody could just like, the test itself doesn't prove that you know anything about financial advising. Well, it proves you know like the definitions and everything, but you could be a person that studied finance and probably know everything on that exam, but you didn't have it all bundled in a book or whatever. Yeah.
Is some of it intended, whether it works or not, is some of it intended for means of consumer protection? So
sure, yeah.
You said just go off and be a doctor. There might be a danger to that, right? Without the residency or without working under maybe a more experienced doctor. I mean, when my path in the financial advisory field is I didn't wake up and decide I was going to be a financial advisor. I worked for a period of time under another registered investment advisor. And they were pretty much loose in what we could do. And it was ultimate performance of the accounts were based on what I was doing. But there was a little bit of oversight, and there was somebody that I could go to that I could say, hey, what are the dangers in this high yield bond fund, or why would I be in this strategy over that?
But if you think, but just to clarify, obviously, that's correct. Where, like, you can't just pass medical school and start doing surgery. Like, those steps, those certain steps are necessary, but it's kind of arbitrary what they choose and what they don't choose. They just, those hurdles are just in place to keep wages high.
Yeah, I've told you this with the financial exam or the Series 65 or whatever you go to get for your securities license. Is 80% of the things that are in there you'll never actually experience in a normal practice, because a lot of it has to do with the regulating laws and the Securities Act of 1933. Well, how often is that going to be brought up in a normal day-to-day? Zero. Right. But I guess having a basis as to what authority the advisor has, how he needs to conduct his business. There are some things like calculating bond yield and difference between a preferred stock and a common stock and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that does come into play, but
Lily's dad is a foot doctor, and he's been practicing for decades now. And he wanted to get licensed in another state, so they made him retake all of his licensing exams, or whatever the tests are called. And it's like the 20 years of experience had absolutely zero value. It didn't even give him extra credit on the test. It's like he had to pass as if he was coming out of med school, like the same test. And he hasn't studied it at all for this test.
Right.
It's not like you brush up on that stuff. So, I mean, he passed the test, but isn't that stupid? Like, your experience should have greater value, you know?
It is crazy. And if I had to retake that test again, my securities license, I would definitely have to study because, again, it's stuff that you've never come across again. So you memorized it for the test, and then it was forgotten shortly after.
Right.
So interesting.
I'm studying for it right now. I have my book right here.
So, Derek, let's get into some ways that we can improve our efficiency. And this is something that is near and dear to me because every year I try. It seems like there's more things that are thrown on the table, more things that are thrown on our plates, and we've got less time to deal with them. So how do we become more efficient? And there's probably a limit to that, but I'm in the mindset that every year I'm going to get better at that. And a lot of times I will learn from trial and error. I'm going to throw the first one out there. And this to me was one of the biggest things that I ever did for my own personal, professional life. It would be developing a morning routine. I firmly believe that the day is either won or lost in the morning. And let me give you an example of how I used to go to work. When I started off in this profession, I would go to work and without really a plan of attack of what was going to happen. And the first thing I would do is I would fire up my computer and I would turn on my emails and I would start answering emails. And all of a sudden, now the day is not mine. The day belongs to someone else, and it's on their whims and it's on their wants and desires and whatever that next pressing emergency is that has to be solved, which typically is an emergency, but it's an emergency to whoever fired that email off to you. Mm-hmm. And then what I would find is by noon, I hopefully got all those to-dos done that were dictated to me by the email. And so I would fire up the email again and I would see who else sent me, and I would be responsive. And so throughout the day, I was actually very busy, and maybe I got some things done, but it was never something that was either moving me closer to my goals or maybe the most pressing issue for my client or to serve the business. So my recommendation would be to control those mornings. And the way to do that is to wake up and have a morning routine. In my morning routine, I'll exercise, I'll typically read something, I'll typically write for a while, and then I will plot out my day before it happens. So obviously I'm waking up around 5 o'clock to do this, 5:30, depending on...
Savage.
Is that right? Well, we'll get into that before. I don't know if I consider myself a morning person, but you get into this routine, and if you do it enough, what happens is you start waking up before the alarm goes off. And so I'll plan my day. So, and my to-do list is not a busy to-do list. Yes, I have the busy to-do list like everybody else, but there might be 15 things on that list. I know that I'm not going to get all 15 things done. So what I'll do is I'll take the top thing, and what I determine is that the top thing is we've got goals. Which one of those is going to move me closer to that goal? And the thing to do is you want to do that the first thing in the morning. You don't want to wait. We're not waiting until after lunch to do this. The first thing in the day is that top goal or that top thing to do that moves us closer to that goal. Because if all hell breaks loose the rest of the day and there's a million fires to put out, as long as I got that one thing done that was going to move us closer to the goal, well, then the day's a success. And I can go on from there, and the day can go to hell, and it'll still be a productive day because I got that one thing done.
Yeah. And then, I know you follow Jocko Willink on, Instagram. He always takes pictures of his watch at 4:30 because he's in the gym by 4:30. And he always says something similar, but he says the first thing you should do is make your bed because, the concept is, if you make your bed in the morning, then you already hand yourself one win. And then, maybe you're going to go out and then work out and have your second win. And then you're going to eat a good breakfast. That's your third win. So then by lunchtime, it's should I have, a salad or should I go get McDonald's? You're like, why would I ruin my win streak? It's I have 3 wins today. It's I can go get my 4th win, Or you can, you basically, get this momentum going. And then it carries you throughout the day. But I'm also not a morning person, but I need to be better at it. Well,
it can be trained. I don't know if I'm a morning person either. Given the opportunity, I think I would I would rather sleep in. But then
Sure, yeah.
there's that nagging thing that's, the clock's running here. And
So-
your clock's a little bit longer than mine. So
So you said you read in the morning. What are you reading right now? I'm actually curious.
So usually what I'll do in the morning is I will, so the book I'm reading is The Fountainhead. But in the morning, my morning read is typically, and I usually, admittedly, I listen to books on tape back and forth to the office.
Mm-hmm.
My morning reading is typically something about the industry. So it's something about what's going on in the markets. It's something to brush me up on if I'm reading who's reporting earnings, what we're looking for in the market that week. That's what I'm kind of reading up on in the morning.
So it's so hard to read like financial media stuff because a lot of it's such like it's half of it's like just talking your book and then the other half of it's just like garbage takes. Like,
Yeah, for sure it is.
You have to find diamonds in the rough. It's so hard.
So what you look for, I think, is you have to look for. I look at a number of different sources, and I look for things that are maybe a repetitive topic, and so because most of it's clickbait. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They're talking about the next, and it all has to do with if you read financial takes on things. I would say 3/4 of them are doom and gloom, because that's what's going to drive headlines, and that's what's going to get people's attention is that doom.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for doom. I believe long term the market continues to go up and to the right. Will it have its fits? Absolutely, but I'm not investing for that. I'm investing for the long term.
I saw an article this morning. It was like, tech is in, financials are out, and then you should thank bond yields. It's like, well, if you would have said that 1 month ago, it's like it would have been the exact opposite scenario. Like, what changed within a month? Like, it's a complete 180 in the entire market, and it's just like, I didn't read the article, so like, maybe it's actually legit, but just going off the headline, it's like they just try to grab you at those headlines because obviously that's a crazy headline, judging off the last month,
Sure. I do believe, though, and we'll get into some investing later on, I do believe that my bold prediction is we're going to start seeing some of these companies that are trading at higher multiples begin to have some wins.
Yeah, that was not a commentary on like where I think the market's heading. Yeah, but it's just the headline itself. But yeah, I would probably agree. But yeah, maybe I should crack open that article.
Well, let me get back to your comment about the wins. You're starting off with an easy win, then you're moving off to working out, then you're eating a good breakfast, and you're gaining this momentum. I don't think that should be overlooked, and that is really the purpose of the morning routine, so that you set yourself up whenever your workday starts, whether it's 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You want to start yourself up with a series of wins, and you want this repetitive, habitual, essentially wins that take place. If you look at a Major League Baseball player that's on a win streak, I shouldn't say winning, hitting streak.
Mm-hmm.
That ball, that when it comes across the plate, looks like a beach ball to him. And if they feel like they can't miss it. And they talk about the basketball player who's in a zone where it doesn't matter where they're at on the court, they're putting up a shot, they feel it's going in. And that momentum and that confidence, I think, plays a big role in what we do throughout the day.
Sure, yeah. And then, but also, I have to throw in like the hot hand fallacy, not to be the pessimist, but this is just like an interesting thing itself, where it's like your previous streak has nothing to do with your next. This doesn't have to do with morning routines, just with shooting baskets and hitting baseballs, but like your previous streak has nothing to do with the next at bat, like from a statistical standpoint.
It doesn't, but I think that
the confidence that comes in, yeah, that definitely. So I actually wonder if there's anything to that, because like statistically, you would say that has no effect, but like if you ask that person, he would say it totally has an effect. And I wonder if the confidence is like negligible.
Think about the golfer. They've got the golfer who can't seem to. His last shot went into the woods, mm-hmm. and now he's up and he's got to make this shot.
Right.
And what's going through his mind? His mind is going through. Is he? What's wrong with my swing? What am I doing wrong? Or the golfer that just knocked one in, right next to the pin. He's thinking, I can't go wrong. Things are working for me today.
Or slumps. Like slumps are very real, because I played baseball where it's like you're almost guaranteed at least one slump every season where you'll just be like, you can't buy a hit. Like it's horrible. So I mean, and that's definitely has something to do with confidence. So yeah, it works against you the other way, like you said.
For somebody local here, so the Indians traded Francisco Lindor. They traded him to the Mets, and he's doing terrible right now. Mm-hmm. He's hitting I don't know exactly what he's hitting, but it's somewhere around 200. And I feel for him a little bit, even though he got a major paycheck. I probably shouldn't feel bad for him, but he's getting booed by the fans there in New York. And imagine the situation. And he obviously doesn't want to be hitting 200. He wants to be earning that paycheck.
Yeah, right.
And so he's pressing. And every time he's up there, he's under that pressure to hit the ball. Rather than just waiting for that Warren Buffett pitch to come to him, he's pressing. And so, which creates a downward spiral, which probably, amplifies that slump.
Yeah, I think that's the first time in Cleveland Indians history where we traded a player and they got worse. Because it seems like for the entire history of the Cleveland Indians, we would have these like pretty decent players, and then we would trade them into like CC Sabathia or like Cliff Lee. They would go off and win the Cy Young the next year. They would be the best pitcher in baseball as soon as and the same with the Browns too, where it's like they'll leave and then be like MVPs. It always drove me crazy. But I like Francisco Lindor when he played for the Indians. But
yeah, he's a fun guy to watch.
He was fun to watch. Yeah, he was really fun to watch when the Indians were winning.
So here's my other recommendation for improving your efficiency. And I know that not every job is the same and not every job can do this. But if you look at the studies, we are not designed to work from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. straight, even though a lot of us do that. What we do is our efficiency declines as we continue to work. And if you look at, you can look at a lot of different fields. If you look at malpractice lawsuits and you look at when that actually surgery happened, it's typically after 2:00 in the afternoon is when most of the malpractices happen. So what you need to do is, if you can, train yourself. A lot of the studies out there say that 60 to 90 minutes is our peak concentration. And so if you can work in sprints and then you take a 15-minute rest and then you work in sprints, and that rest doesn't actually have to mean you're laying down, but you're doing something that is giving your mind a break, and then you're getting back into it. And when you're sprinting, here's the thing: you have to sprint. So the cell phone, if possible, you got to take that and put that aside, because all the studies also show that if I'm deep in concentration and I get a text on my cell phone, I look down and I take a moment to answer that, it takes me a number of minutes to get back into that level of concentration. So if you think about your cell phone, it's going off every 5 minutes because somebody's sending a text and asking, what are you having for lunch? Get back to that at some other point. Answer those texts during that 15-minute rest. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, these texts that come in aren't, life-changing events that happen. So turn your email off and turn your cell phone off and focus on doing your best work for those 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That was my studying philosophy when I was in school. Is do like 30 minutes of sprinting and then like 15-minute breaks, and then you basically want to get to a point where like you're maximizing the flow state or whatever, where it's like you can't really like quantify it, but you know what it is when you're in it, where you're just very deep focus, and you want to maximize that time. So it's like, even if you have to do like 5 minutes of work and then like a 1 minute break, it's like you basically have to train yourself to maximize that flow state. So if you have to, like, if you're somebody that has trouble focusing, like literally do like crazy intervals and then just try to work to expand them. So like that's a really good tool for studying. But I imagine maybe none of our listeners are in school, but if you are, that's a really good tip for studying. That's the method I always use.
Well, I mean, studying has to do with concentration, right? And so if you look at if I'm developing a plan for somebody, like I don't want to be answering texts, and I don't want to be, and the person who I'm doing the plan for doesn't want me answering texts and emails in the middle of that plan. 100% of my focus on that plan until that plan gets done. And if it's not done within 90 minutes, then I need to take a break and then come back to it and do it again. Here's a trick. And this doesn't work for me. I'm that person that actually works better in silence. So I would lock myself away in a room, close the door, and then focus on the plan. But some people, there's a psychologist out there named Nilli, Nilli, and I think it's Lavie or Lavie, Lavie. And she came up with a theory that's called load theory. And what she said was that there's this sweet spot where for a lot of people, there's only so much external things going on that our mind can concentrate on. So if I'm working on a construction site and somebody's yelling my name and I hear kids playing in the playground, there's a dog barking, there's only so much that our brain can take in. And so it's possible to have overload where you just can't, there's too much to focus on. But that sweet spot, she said, was for a lot of people was there's just enough outside stimulus going on that it actually allows our brain to concentrate because we're forcing ourselves to focus. So an example of that would be if you're studying while listening to classical music. Because some people, the silence is too much, where they actually can't. They're always looking for something to do. They're looking for some stimulus on their brain, and so they're checking their phone or they're doing that. But a lot of people benefit from some like light music or something going on in the background that forces them to focus.
Do you know what lo-fi is?
Mm-mm.
So like look it up on Spotify whenever. But it's basically like music that was generated by algorithms. It's literally like it'll be like a low. I don't know what lo-fi actually stands for, but it's like it'll be like one beat with some like melodies on top of it, or it'll be like bump, bump, bump. And it's like supposed to be relaxing, and like when I will listen to music, I actually don't like listening to music because I think it's distracting. Like I can't listen to music with lyrics. That's the big thing. But if you do like lo-fi or classical music, I'll even have to turn the volume like to like 1 or 2, like really low volume, and just kind of have it on in the background. But then like I'll find myself keep turning it down because even that's distracting. But I actually did my science fair project on that in like 8th grade. I went to state because I did like productivity and music. Yeah. And you're right, classical music was the best at improving productivity.
Why is that? Is because obviously there are some types of genres of music that are probably like heavy metal would be probably distracting, or even some rap might be distracting.
I think it's the lyrics. I think that was the thing. Lo-fi wasn't a thing back then, but I wish I would have done like lo-fi. And then I was in like 8th grade. Give me a break. But I actually didn't do a control group of. Maybe I did of no music. I wonder if I did. It's like whoever sent me to state, they didn't do a good job.
That's funny. Here's another trick that I think that you can use. So when I was an athlete in high school and college, I had this book that was called The Edge, and it was a list of quotes from all these famous athletes who were successful in their field. And Dan Hampton, who was I believe a defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears during the years when the Bears were amazing in the 80s, 85. He said he was quoting for it. He was always in search for the perfect exhaustion. And when he said that, I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Because he's obviously working out and he's pushing his body to the limits. But from a performance point of view, we should be in search for the perfect energy. And the way that you get that is through exercise and diet, I believe. Sleep, exercise, and diet. And you want to sustain energy that can get you. And as you age, you don't have this problem yet, Dirk, but I promise you, as you age, you start losing some of that energy. And so the way that we can maintain that long term is we can have that clean diet, and a diet that kind of burns like coals, not like gasoline. So we're not the sugar spikes that go on through the day. We want that energy that's prolonged. The sleep was a big thing that I learned. Was we mentioned in prior podcasts. I thought that I was going to win by outworking the other person to death, and if I'd have continued, I probably would have worked myself to death. You definitely need that sleep because it gives you that energy, and then the exercise. By expending energy, I like to do my exercise in the morning because then I'm burning throughout the day. I'm burning calories throughout the day. But those are 3 things that I would highly recommend that you do for improving efficiency.
Yeah, that's good. I think if we're talking about efficiency, one of the things that I use is like work smarter, not harder. So I say, I don't know if Bill Gates actually said this, but this quote is attributed to Bill Gates, where if he has a really difficult job, he'll hire a lazy person to do it because they'll find the easiest way to do it. It's like,
that's funny.
Like take the sentiment of that and don't be a lazy person. Like just think about the easiest way to do things. And
sure.
If you look at, like when I first started on at Crosby Advisory, like one of the first thing I did was like look for things to automate, like look for things that take up time, and try to find a way to like use your skills. It doesn't have to be technology skills, just like work smarter, not harder, and look for ways to like look at the task itself and see if it can be done in a better way. Kind of look at it like that.
I agree. And I think you also want to keep the goal in mind and figure out, how do I focus most of my attention on the goal? So example for that is, so you came to Crosby Advisory, and one of the things you did was look for inefficiencies. How can we do this faster, better? And one of the things that come to my mind was the trade blotter. You automated the trade blotter so that we weren't manually entering every single component of a trade that went in there. And that's important because the trade blotter is important. I don't want to put any I don't want to pretend it's not, because the trade blotter ensures that the trades that we process for our clients actually go through. But when it comes time to review a portfolio with a client, the client never asks me, so how was the trade blotter going?
Yeah. It's not like, it's important, but it's not as important as, like, if you had a pie chart of all of the time spent, it doesn't have a proportional like increase or a proportional value to the amount of time it takes to do it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, the focus should be on, my client is hiring me to grow money or produce income or protect assets, whatever that might be. So that is the goal. How do I spend most of my time on that? That doesn't mean that I can throw away the other stuff, but you're right. When possible, automate it.
Yeah. And then another thing is, so this was more of the, like, maybe not ways to increase efficiency, but ways to increase your income. That was another thing we wanted to talk about today. I would say look for problems to solve. So like, you kind of have to take ownership and take pride at what you're doing, and like, just be mindful of like problems that people are having, and just think about creative ways to solve them. I think is very useful, especially if like, going back to the beginning of the podcast, like we said, you are paid proportionate to the amount of value and the amount of skills that you bring. So let's take my job for instance. Like, if you're just like, I help manage accounts. I do a lot of stuff, but I help manage the accounts. I do marketing, all that stuff. It's like, I become more valuable the more stuff I can take on. Well, not the more stuff I can take on, but the like, the more stuff I take on, the more stuff I do, I become like integrated into the system, and it becomes harder for somebody to do what I do. And like, even like editing the podcast, I basically have to learn Adobe Premiere. It's like, if you found somebody off the street, I'd like to think that they wouldn't be willing to like completely learn a new skill set just to for now, like, the same salary, you know what I'm saying? Like, take on more workload for the same amount of outcome or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
No,
yeah,
you're right on the money. So you want to make more income, continue to work on yourself. Like, you're never at that state where you're good enough. Continue to educate yourself, continue to learn, continue to show that you can take on new roles and tasks, and even maybe some things that are outside your comfort zone. Because look at you. So if I had to replace, and you're creating the situation. So if I had to replace Derek Ballinger today, I have to replace somebody who can help me manage portfolios. I have to find somebody who can help me research and break down what's going on with the market. I have to find somebody who is tech savvy, so they can do some of the marketing things that we do, and some of the things that we do with IT. I need to do something with that. The charts that we've created, the watch lists, all that kind of things that have kind of been produced to real time, and it's no longer on paper. It's sent to us. We've get alerts and notifications when some of the things we're watching hit a marker that we're looking for. So yeah, you might say that you have to either find somebody that's very identical like you, which would be tough, or I have to hire multiple people.
Right.
I have to hire somebody. And so by constantly learning and constantly showing that you can take on new tasks and new responsibilities, your income is going to go up, because it has to.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you become more valuable to the employer.
Right. Yeah, I think that's gold.
For sure. The other thing that I would look to do is figure out a system of notes for yourself. And we kind of talked about this when we talked about the journal. And that doesn't mean that if you want to carry a journal around all day, that's fine. I don't. But I do have a system of notes. I typically use, we have a management system we use for notes. But on my phone, even if it's like your notepad on your phone that you're writing stuff down. Mm-hmm. But then the other thing that I found, and I've talked about this before, is I started, and this is actually recent, I got into it, then I got away from it, and then I realized how valuable it was. I know we're on video here, but I use a pen that has two different inks in it so that I can very quickly see what I'm looking for. So anything related to the business is being written in red. Anything that is a personal note of mine, I'm writing in black, so that when I look down on that paper, I can see my eyes go right to whatever I need to go to.
I bought, you inspired me. I bought new pens and a new notebook. Kind of on the same thread, but I hate that pen. I gotta be honest with you. I think it's too loose. I like it solid, you know. This is the pen that I got. Ready? Boom.
To each his own. I know that, yeah.
But anyway, so like I get, maybe this will inspire you. I did a 3-subject notebook. So each subject, like the front subject's for like client notes, the next one's for like study material, and yeah, that's what I do to keep my stuff separated.
Yeah, right on. Because organization, if you want to be more efficient, organization. Like, how many times, have you wanted to start the workday, but you can't find whatever you're looking for? You can't find your keys. You can't find that folder that you're looking for, and then you spend 20 minutes looking for it. It's 20 minutes it's wasted. So organized, and this is something that I'm not a naturally organized person, so I've had to create some things in my workplace that allow me to be organized, whether that be software or just processes that we do things, the way I record my notes. Focusing on being organized obviously will help you become more efficient because you have things readily available to you. Derek, this next one is going to be right up your alley because I was reading a New York Times study, and it showed that if you are an office worker or you work in an office environment or you use a computer for anything that you do, dual monitors will increase your efficiency by up to 30% is what they claim.
I didn't even think of that one, but I'm like the godfather of dual monitors. I think that's like the best thing you can do to improve your productivity.
Just the simple fact of going back and forth. Like a lot of times we'll be working on things and then sometimes I'll have 4 or 5 different windows open and I'm trying to find the right window. And again, complete waste of time.
Just think about that flow state. Every time you have to switch tabs, I think that breaks your flow state where you're like, why am I switching? And then you'll switch back to the first one and you'll be like, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. And then you'll go back. Maybe I just have real problems with short-term memory, but I feel like that happens to me all the time where I'll like switch a tab back before I had my monitor. I'll switch a tab and I'll forget why I was going to that tab. And then you have to like backtrack.
No, that's for sure. And I think when you're breaking that concentration, it gives your mind an opportunity to find something else to focus on, which then gets you off track. So by having those dual monitors up there and not having to do that, I think that's a big thing.
So when are you getting your second one?
I have a dual monitor already.
You have a monitor. You don't have dual monitors.
No, I use my monitor on my laptop and then I use the second one. So there's 2.
Yeah, but dual monitors is like the one we have in the conference room where it's like the arms, or it's like 2 monitors. Yeah.
Well, I said I never would probably need 2 of them, so I imagine eventually I will have 3.
Like, yeah, because you need you have to have red tail up, and then you have to have like your trades, and then your watch list. 3.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be perfect.
I need a bigger desk is what I do need.
Yeah. My desk is never gonna be big enough. I'm gonna just have like the whole wall as a desk. That's my dream.
Yeah. Check out if anybody follows our Instagram page or even Facebook page. Was it on Facebook as well?
Yeah, it's
the
on
picture
Facebook,
we posted with our monitors on there.
Yeah, that looks sweet.
That looks really cool. So I talked about sleep. I wanted to hit a little bit on sleep because obviously everybody knows we're trying to get anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Most people would agree per day. Some people can get less. Some people need more. You need to find out what works for you. But what I found is waking up at the same time every morning, and that includes weekends. Sleeping in on the weekends is going to throw you way off. So if you can, try to get up at the same time on the weekends. Try to sleep in the darkest room you can possible. Cooler environments typically work for most people.
Yeah.
The other trick is when you wake up in the morning, if you're feeling groggy, expose yourself to sunlight. And this actually works with a hangover too, which is not a problem that I have. But I've heard that some people have problems with that. Exposing themselves to sunlight, walking out on the porch, getting some sun will automatically help you feel better, and it will automatically begin to wake you up.
And like breakfast always helps me with a hangover.
Yeah, well, yeah. Some people are breakfast people. I'm a breakfast person as well, but I think the main thing is getting that sleep, uninterrupted sleep. Try not to fall asleep on your cell phone, even though I'm guilty of doing that sometimes. And then that dark room actually is a big thing. Because I have daughters, I've also often fell asleep, reading to them, and they always have night lights in the room. But the nights that I am able to fall asleep in a dark room, I always do notice that I wake up more refreshed.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's another thing. Like I mentioned it in a previous podcast where I kind of have some trouble sleeping in the cool room, and especially the dark. Like I can't have any light, or it'll mess with my sleep. I think
Distract you.
yeah, you're right on.
My final thing before becoming more efficient is something that you and I have talked about before, probably off the mic here, is 10,000 hours. That 10,000 hours of mastery. A lot of people agree that it takes, to be a true master at your craft, it takes at least 10,000 hours of repetitive, everyday grind into that. And what you find is you also become more efficient too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think you cut off the fat on a lot of your processes, or to go back to the more efficiency and like look for ways to automate it. Like you realize which steps aren't really necessary, and yeah, you can cut a lot of fat off the stuff that you do.
Yeah. Think about a contractor. If you're a contractor that installs floors every day, you could go to a job site and you've done this, you've got your 10,000 hours in. If you and I, Derek, tried to do that floor, it takes us a week to do it, where he could probably pound it out in a day.
Sure. Yeah.
Just because we're going to take time with all these different inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
For actually laying it down.
And make mistakes. Like he made those mistakes 10 years ago. Now he doesn't make those mistakes anymore.
Yeah. Perfect.
Have you ever seen the videos on YouTube? If you haven't, you need to, because you would like them. Where it's just like compilation videos of people doing like jobs extremely well and extremely efficiently.
Oh yeah,
where they'll be like cutting grass and they'll use like that's like
a sickle.
And they'll just chunk, or they'll be like making falafel or something, and they're like throwing it over their head. They're like catching, or they're like chopping onions, and it'll be like they're like swinging the knife. Those videos, I love those videos. It's so satisfying to use like the corny term, but I can't get enough of those.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh my gosh, dude. You have to. I'm gonna send you this as soon as we get off. But it's a new YouTube channel that I subscribe to, where it's called Tool Tips, where they'll do like anything, just like with wood or with, any tools in general. But it is amazing some of the stuff that this dude does, where you're like, there's no way, like it's all about like hiding screws, or like it's weird stuff like wall anchors that are apparently like the coolest thing to watch. Maybe I'm just a complete nerd, but the dude has 1.2 million subscribers, so I don't think I am. I think that this channel is actually awesome.
No, I love that, and I don't know if this falls into those categories, but those kind of life hacks, those everyday life hacks that you can use to better yourself as far as the handyman work or things around the house, or I'm really big into that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Let's get into some stocks here. So if I'm looking at the week ahead, and this one will, I'm not sure when this one's going to go out. When is this recording going to go off?
I have my calendar. Hold up.
It's next week, right? Next Wednesday?
Yeah, next. That's my third.
So Adobe is going to already report. Adobe reports on Thursday, I believe. And one of the things I'm watching, Adobe is an interesting stock to me, because it's up about 8%, 8.23% for the year as of right now, the recording today. But 7% of it has happened in the past 5 days. So Adobe's one of these stocks that's been a fantastic long-term stock to own. They do a lot of their cloud-based software that has to do with, we use Adobe for our marketing. We use the Adobe Creative Cloud. What do you use? You do use the Adobe Premiere, right? Yeah. So Adobe's got a lot of products, and they just print money. They have a 40% profit margin, and they just, again, have been a long-term grower for us. They have a PE of 47, which is a bit elevated. And so what we have seen, the thesis so far this year has been anything with an elevated PE has been punished. But as of late, as of the past week or two here, we're beginning to see some of these stocks appear to break out. Adobe may be one of them. It'll be interesting to see what Adobe is going to do. They're expected to have an earnings per share of $2.81 per share. They're expected to have revenue of $3.75 billion, which will be up 19% year over year. I don't think that's too far of a hurdle for a company like Adobe to beat. I'm not saying go out and buy it for the earnings. I think you buy Adobe for the next 5 years, and not worry about the earnings. But Adobe's beginning to climb. Look at PayPal. PayPal's beginning to climb. PayPal has I had a brain loss here.
We're talking about PE.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Jeez.
Yeah, no problem.
PayPal has a PE of around 61, so again an elevated PE, but we're beginning to see that one kind of climb out from its slumber that it's been in here for the past 6 months. So that's why
Apple too. Apple kind of gained some traction over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, to me, Apple is now a value play, even though it's got a little bit of a elevated PE. But with the cash position it has as a company, and the fact that it's negative for the year, still to date, I believe. So if I was looking for opportunities here, I would probably be looking to pick up shares of Apple. I don't think you could go too wrong with that.
I think, for what it's worth, the consensus view seems to be that the Apples and Amazons that have kind of been lagging the market this year will come back in the second half of 2021. And I kind of subscribe to that view as well. I think a lot of the stuff with the supply chain will get worked out, and all of the other hiccups in the supply side, I think all those get worked out in the second half. Well, not like completely, but enough where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, where you can see a scenario where we completely resolve the problems maybe early 2022. And I think the market will realize that Apple shouldn't be down for the year. That shouldn't be... Like, it'd be pretty rare circumstances where Apple should be trailing the market, especially when they're putting up record numbers.
Yep, I agree. There's only so long the market can ignore these stocks. And let's get into, in most weeks I put out kind of a week ahead what we're looking at, or it could be the culmination of the week and trying to make sense of the week, and I put that out to investors. Let's do this right now on this podcast, and maybe you can take some clips of it and put it on Instagram and other places here. If I look at this week coming up here, there's a couple things that I want to draw attention to. A lot of you who own individual stocks are shareholders of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is doing a share split. So it has a 4-to-1 share split coming up. So this is going to happen on the 20th of June, I believe. So pay attention to that. And the reason I bring that up is not so you should go out and buy NVIDIA, because we always talk about, if I've got a pizza pie and I split that up into 8 pieces, or I split that up into 16 pieces, I still have the same amount of pizza. So a share split is not the reason to go out and buy. However, if you look at a lot of times when companies announce they're doing a share split, their stock tends to rise, because there are people who go out and think, oh man, this is a better value. I can get it cheaper now going forward. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like, I completely just lost what I was going to say. But, yeah, I completely lost it.
That's okay. Let me pick you up here. So Trade Desk is another one. The Trade Desk is another one. Get this. Trade Desk is doing a 10-to-1 share split. Now Trade Desk is $500 and some right now per share, so it's going to be roughly
came down a lot. Like, we talked about that.
Right.
That might have been last year when we talked about it, and we were both like really interested in the prospects, but like maybe not so much anymore, because Google announced that they were going to do some changes to the way their ads are set up, which would directly affect Trade Desk. But they were trading at, like, I think at their all-time high was like $900, and then it came back almost $500. Even after pretty solid quarters, it was just pretty elevated, and just like got caught in the crossfire, I guess, with a lot of the high-flying names. But I think Trade Desk is actually pretty interesting. I could see myself adding that one too. I mean, it's on our watch list, but adding it to my portfolio, maybe not anytime soon, but just keeping an eye on it for sure.
So the reason I bring up the share splits is because I don't want, sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you thought NVIDIA was trading at, X amount, and all of a sudden it's cut by a fourth.
712, and now it's at 200. Yeah.
So you panic. So no, don't panic. You have actually more shares now than what you had before. You have the same amount of NVIDIA and you have the same amount of Trade Desk. You just have more shares of that. The other thing that I want to get into.
Hold on. I just remembered what I was going to say. Okay. So if I just lost you, I'll flip my.
This is impressive.
Oh my gosh. Hold on. I'm gonna force myself to remember this. Hold on. What were we just saying about jog my memory?
I was just mentioning that you don't want to panic when you wake up and.
I got it. Okay, so it's unlikely that like NVIDIA is not going to do a share split and like increase the liquidity of their stock and bring like the ticket price of their stock down if they don't think it's going to rise in the future. because like think about like the reverse of a stock split where they're like consolidating shares. It's
Right.
like that's if it's like $1.50 and they think it's going to be $1, they'll make it like worth $4 so they don't like get delisted or anything. But it's like
Sure.
if they think the share price is going to go up, that's when they would do a stock split because
Yeah.
they want to like increase liquidity and everything.
Yeah, in short, if
Whoa.
you believe your stock's going to go down, you're not going to do it. Not going to do a stock split.
I thought I was like showing early signs of dementia or something.
Oh, hope not. The other thing we have, I think, in the market is we're beginning to see a tug of war. And on one side, you've got these companies that are reporting these amazing earnings, and I think that's going to continue. On the other side, you've got the threat of potential rising interest rates, and you've got the threat of inflation. And so I think what you're going to have is a back and forth. And I think for the foreseeable future here, even though I believe long-term the market continues to trend up, I think it's going to be a volatile trend up. And I bring that to the attention of it's actually a picker's dream. So if I've got cash, I don't think, even though everything shows that time in the market, not timing the market, if I'm buying individual stocks, we should have some opportunities here coming up that our favorite stocks are going to have these days that trade off, and it's our time to pick them up. So if you have cash on the side, this might be actually a fun time to be an investor because we should be able to find these moments where we can pick these long-term winners up for discount prices.
I've been texting you and texting other people for that matter about a big play right now is the semiconductor play and people looking for ways to play the shortage and see if there's ways to benefit off that. And we were just talking about NVIDIA. One of their competitors is AMD, Advanced Micro Devices.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of unrecognized value with AMD because we were talking about, I have it pulled up here, like we talked about PEG ratio. Anything below 2 is considered a value. Well, AMD has a PEG ratio of 1.2. They're trading 30 times next year's earnings, which is comparable to like a more value play in the semiconductor space, like Taiwan Semiconductor or Intel. Well, no, Intel's lower, but it's about the same as Taiwan Semiconductor. And it doesn't pay a dividend, but they're expecting earnings to grow 232%. Or no, sorry, I apologize. It grew 232% from last year, and they're expecting earnings per share to grow 600% this year.
Yep.
But the shares have been trading flat since like last July. It really hasn't seen the same uptick that like NVIDIA, even though they're probably expecting similar growth. So I think AMD is a really good play right now. I've been picking up shares of AMD.
Agree. The other thing that we're looking at is taking place in the market is if the growth targets do continue to pan out like what is projected, then we should expect to see rising yields in bond. And because of that, we want to continue to be in shorter duration if we're looking at the investment grade. However, I will point out our high yield bonds. Our high yield bonds have done fantastic.
Yeah.
The holding that we have in most of our models is PIMCO's ticker symbol PTY. And if I look at that up to date, about 14% from a high yield bond, and it pays 7% yield on that. So that's been a very nice one to own.
Yeah, that's a winner. And also, the REITs, the real estate investment trusts, and all of it. Or are you going to bring that up next?
Yeah, the REITs are right on the money there.
Yeah.
So our VNQ is our holding that we use for most of our real estate exposure, up 23% for the year. The thing that I wanted to point out is, when we're in meetings and I'm talking to clients, the first thing that they ask, what happens when interest rates begin to rise? Well, if I'm talking about residential homes, then yeah, that's probably going to slow down the purchases of the new homes, purchases of the older homes, because you're going to price out some of the market with the interest rates rising. But keep in mind that VNQ, that Vanguard Real Estate ETF, has a lot of commercial real estate in there. Mm-hmm. And commercial real estate should actually benefit from a recovery.
Sure, yeah. And one that you called, pat yourself on the back, was Starwood Properties, or ST, ticker symbol STWD. You told me to pick that one up at like $12 or $13 a share. Now it's trading at like almost $27. You really picked that one from the bottom, and it has like 10% yields or 10% dividends. So yeah, you really you called that one.
I told you to buy that one and hold it forever because it's going to.
I thought we were both thinking it was going to take a while for that to come back, and it came back in less than a year.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick. You don't have to go all in on YOLO AMC. It's like there's value plays where you can make pretty stellar returns.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Be patient, and this is the long-term game. That's a thing that I get into, and I'm going to end this with this. Is any time that I see, there's no shortage of slot machine investments out there, to say this thing, where you're pulling that lever and you're hoping it goes up. So as many people win that, there's going to be as many people that lose that get in at the wrong time. But the thing that never fails is buying the quality investment and holding it a long time. I know that's boring because nobody wants to wait a decade in order to quadruple their return into something, but that's the surest bet.
Yeah. And I think that a portion of your portfolio should be allocated for looking for like asymmetric return, which is why I have like Bitcoin, because you think that the opportunity for return is greater than the loss that you would suffer. But I don't think it should be detached from reality. I still think it should be in the realm of investing. I don't like some people say 5 to 10% of your portfolio should basically be a slot machine where you're playing around with like a Nikola Motors or playing with AMC or GameStop. I don't subscribe to that view, but I think that maybe 5 to 10% is riskier, definitely riskier, but you should still have like an investment thesis behind it.
Yeah. Because if my savings rate is on point, then I should not have to take uneducated, crazy gambles in order to try and hit it. If my savings rate's on point, the percentage of my paycheck that I'm saving, and I'm saving in quality investments, and yes, a portion of the portfolio should be in riskier. If you look at most of our portfolios, we may have emerging markets, or we may have small caps, or we may have something that is our high yield bond fund is a little bit more risk return in there.
Well, I would say more volatile even. Like, I don't think small cap is like, it's more volatile, but not necessarily like riskier. Like, because you would expect in most markets, if everything's doing well, small caps would do well as well.
Yeah.
As well.
I guess it depends on how you define risk. And I agree. Risk to me is ending up at the point that you want to be with not enough money. It's not in the volatility in between.
Sure. Yeah.
So, Derek, anything else to add before we head out into the week?
As always, thank you guys for listening to Dynamic Growth. Please consider sharing, subscribing wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube at Crosby Advisory Group. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dynamic Growth Pod and at Crosby Advisory Group. And email us with any episodes or any topics that you want to hear us talk about. I think next week we're doing goals. Are we doing goals next week?
We can do goals. That can be our goal. Sure.
Our goals. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll see you guys next week.
Derek, the thing that you just mentioned that I think is important is I actually was at a soccer game and a listener asked me, how do we actually, you had mentioned that for viewers who are watching us, how do I actually watch it? You mentioned the YouTube. So real quick, walk us through that. How would they actually find Crosby Advisory's YouTube channel?
The YouTube algorithm hasn't favored us yet. Like, you have to kind of build up some stuff. We're getting there. So if you search Crosby Advisory, you should be able to find us. But
okay.
Hopefully you don't have to do too much searching for very long. Hopefully we'll get some oomph behind the YouTube algorithm.
Gotcha. All right. Please remember, Crosby Advisory is a registered investment advisor. At any time, you can request our forms ADV 2A and 2B, which go into the business practices and qualifications of Crosby Advisory. Today on the show, Derek and I may have mentioned specific securities. That is not a recommendation for you to go out and sell them or buy them. Do your own homework. Know that investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. You should carefully consider all risks and fees before making an investment. Crosby Advisory is also a licensed insurance advisor. Insurance products are sold and serviced through Crosby Advisory.
You can also go on the website, crosbyadvisory.com.
There you go.